Hey, you guys, Tricia Turner here. It is Tuesday afternoon, a little after 12 o'clock Central. This is Walk Away Wealthy podcast that's been running about 3 years now. And I normally do this every Tuesday with a guest on the show. And I was going to have one on today, but I was really listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of consumer questions in the last week or so about the market and what's going on in the market and interest rates and just questions and uncertainty and like what's really going on with the market. And so I thought instead of having a guest on today, because I was going to be talking about a different topic, I would jump on here, share some information with you guys, keep it shorter for one, and for two, I'm going to present some slides and show you some information. So if you're a real estate agent, you can best prepare for what's going on and thrive in a down market. And if you're a consumer, you can be better educated and know like what to expect and make decisions based on factual information instead of just stuff that you're hearing in mainstream media. So everybody knows that interest rates are higher than they have been, of course, since last year. And if you're in the real estate market, you do know that home sales basically have come to a screeching halt in a lot of places. We are down across the nation about 30% regarding transaction count. There are some areas that are still doing really well. There are some teams and companies still doing really well. You're really seeing the hurt as far as transaction count goes in part-time agents and in single agents. The average agent that maybe only sells 2 to 4 homes a year, perhaps they're not selling anything right now. Perhaps they're only selling 1 or 2 homes per year. If that is your only source of income, you're definitely feeling that and you're having a problem. Lenders are also feeling that same thing because during COVID, when home prices and home values and transaction count was at like an all-time high, everybody was eating high on the hog, right? And people were not worried about their bills, not worrying about budgeting, not worrying about anything, not thinking, well, this too shall pass and this has got to come to an end. But like all things, everything that goes up must come down. And so that's where we are right now. No one really could foresee the interest rate hiking like they did last year. I mean, you have to think for years, we were looking at a 2 to 3.5% interest rate for years, four at max, right? That went on for a long time. So that was the norm or what people had gotten used to. However, in 2004, 5, and 6, even 7, interest rates norm were between 6 to 9%. So where we are today, this is 2023, March, the end of, I mean, sorry, not March, it's May, end of May, we're at like almost 7% in some areas. You can buy down that rate. And of course, you can get FHA or VA for under that. But the norm average is somewhere between like 6.5 and 6.8% right now. A lot higher than say 3 to 3.5%. So when you look at that, like last year when interest rates started hiking up, and it was around June when we saw that first uptick, and then they continued upticking throughout the year. By fourth quarter of 2022, you were looking at almost a double interest rate from where they had been. So from 3% to 6%. Then they went to 6.5, almost 7%. People are like, heck no, I'm not buying a house right now. Sellers were like, heck no, I'm not selling my house right now because I'm locked in at a 2.8% interest rate. Why in the world do I want to sell my house and go into a 6.8% interest rate? I'm not going to do it, right? That's what most people were saying, and they still are. So when you think of like what is going on, why are we having such a challenge getting transactions or getting sales to go through? That's why buyers still aren't wanting to pull the trigger. Sellers still aren't wanting to pull the trigger. So it's kind of like a gridlock, right? This will change. It's going to change because we can't continue on like this. The real estate industry as a whole, it funnels about 26 other industries. So when we sell a home, we're helping inspectors, we're helping insurance agents, title companies, lenders, home cleaners, landscapers, painters, carpenters, carpet people, flooring. I mean, the list goes on and on. Movers, 26 different industries are affected by home sales. And so when you look at that, those people go out and eat at restaurants. Those people go shopping. Those people go on vacations. Those people spend money. So if our agent or our transaction count is done or down, then their income is down in a lot of their industries, and then their spending is down. So it's a trickle down effect. It definitely fuels or hinders the economy when the real estate world as a whole is down. And so I want to show you guys some information. keep in mind, if you're a real estate agent, what you should, and consumers, 85% of home sales come from a life event, a marriage, a death, a job change, a baby, empty nesters. Something happens to make them need or want a different home. They either want to sell, they want to buy because of one of those factors. 85% of home sales. So when you think about that, it's like, okay, people are still dying, people are still getting divorced, people are still having babies, kids are still growing up and moving away, people are still losing their jobs, people are still getting jobs in different places and going through job transfers, people are opening businesses. So these things are still happening. What you're not seeing right now, very much of, is people that are out looking at homes for the heck of it because they feel like, maybe I want to buy a different house now. Maybe I don't like my house so much anymore. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side. They're really not thinking about that right now because there's a lot of uncertainty. I don't want to pay this high interest rate. And there's this talk about, well, are interest rates coming down? Are home values coming down? Maybe I need to just wait. Well, first of all, lots of times when you just wait, you lose opportunity. That's number one. And number two, a confused mind always says no. So when there's confusion in the mind is going to just stop and be paralyzed because it doesn't know what to do. What should you do? Before I go into these slides, I believe, and here's what my predictions are. Number one, I do believe interest rates are coming down. I believe in June. Now, keep in mind that the Feds have been wanting inflation to get to back to about 2% before they say they will let interest rates come down or they will slow up on escalating interest rates. But look what's happened to the economy. It's like things are not well right now. Banks are collapsing. People are freaking out. That's not a good state of mind ever for our economy and for our country. So I do believe that interest rates will start ticking back down. I believe we likely won't see that until maybe the end of June. But I believe where we are today, even if it's at 6.5, 6 1/8, whatever that is, there's still room for you to get a good interest rate. Number one, that's not a crazy high interest rate. That's a doable average interest rate when you look at as the world as a whole, and even the last 20 years in the real estate and then the mortgage side. That's not a crazy high rate, right? Number two, when you look at like what's going on in the real estate market, sellers, because there's no movement or not much movement in the market, a lot of sellers are willing to negotiate right now. A lot of builders are willing to negotiate right now, whereas they weren't during the COVID time. So if you look at a home that's maybe priced at 580,000, well, number one, is that home worth 580,000? That's your first thing you need to determine, and only an expert can tell you that. Just because it's listed at a certain price does not mean that is the actual value of that home. You got to consider the source. Number two, like once you understand what is the value of that home, like what's a good offer then? It's listed at 580. Maybe it's been on the market 140 days. That's a long time in the market. Maybe those sellers need to sell. You never know their motivation. Like I said, people sell for death, divorce, baby, something like that, job loss, job transfer. So maybe one of those things has happened to that seller. So then what kind of an offer should you make on a property like that? 580? I don't know. Could you come in and offer 550 and get it? Maybe. Could you come in and offer 560 and ask for 15,000 back towards your closing costs to help you buy down your interest rate? Probably so. Those things matter. Those things are what you can expect and see in a market that we're in right now, where homes are really not coming off the market. Not as much. There's certain pockets, yes, where we're still seeing multiple offers. Yes. Are we getting over list price offers? Yes, 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 yes. Those things are happening. But I'm talking as a whole, and I'm talking out as a national level. We're having a lot of homes that are sitting on the market. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying right now. Number one, you have fewer buyers out there looking, or fewer buyers, I should say, pulling the trigger. So your competition is not fierce. Your competition is less. Therefore, you as the buyer hold a little bit more power right now over a lot of these sellers in certain situations. Keep that in mind. Also, keep in mind that if interest rates do trickle back down in about 30 days or so, which I believe that they will, what if they continue to come back down? And what if they go back down even to 5%? Or what if they dipped slightly below 5% by like end of July or so? What do you think is going to happen to those buyers who are on the fence right now? that are like, man, I can't afford a 7% interest rate, or I can't afford a 6% interest rate. Or they're just absolutely refusing to pay that kind of an interest rate. What do you think they're going to do when interest rates come back down to 5%? Do you think they're going to come off the fence and start buying? Of course they are. So if you're sitting on the sidelines of this game called real estate and you're like, I'm going to wait until interest rates get down to 5% again. Well, number one, you could also lose your opportunity to get a home, because if that happens and we run out of inventory and we end up where really multiple offers are coming in on properties and people are paying much over list price like they were during COVID times, that forced out first-time home buyers. That forced out a lot of people out of the market because they couldn't compete. My belief is that when you have options and choices and you can negotiate, you're always in a better position. So I believe the market's on the side of the buyers right now because of their negotiating power, because most sellers, not all, a lot of sellers are vulnerable right now to the conditions of the market. So keep that in mind. If you watch, now keep in mind, we're headed into an election year and things usually get even crazier during an election year. So I'm not even going to try to predict what's going to happen in like fourth quarter and 2024. But here's what I believe, and the people that I pay attention to, that we're going to have a good middle of the summer, late summer, fall. Don't know yet about winter. Don't know yet about 2024. A lot of people predict that we will have a pretty rocky 2024, but that the golden times are coming. Like 2025 is going to be amazing, and we're going to do great and wonderful things. But I want to show some slides to you. I'm going to make sure that this works. Hopefully it does, because I normally don't share my slides, but let's see if I can. I'm going to add it from my slides. Let's see. I'm going to have to put on my glasses to show you guys this. Hopefully you're going to be able to see it. My recent ones. 2 seconds while I try to show you all this stuff. Let me find it, because it's super informative. Y'all are going to like it. As soon as I find it. Saved it to my computer, but then I don't remember what I saved it as. So sit tight. Let's find it. Because the data is really fascinating. And me. Oh my gosh, I gotta find this file. Hold on. I got it. I'm going to just pull it back out of, and it's the data that I pulled out to show you guys is from the National Association of Realtors. Give me 2 seconds. See, I normally am better prepared for this stuff, but because I've never done it like this, I'm going to resave it, and so I can share it for you guys. 2023. All right. Should be able to get it now. Okay. Because you're going to like this data. Got it. Okay. Let me see. Let me add it to the stream. It's processing, but this data will like show you stuff. And so for you real estate agents, where I'm going with all of that, let me add this to the stream. Okay, so check this out. Okay, so I want to show you here. Let me get to the good stuff. So when I was telling you and before when I was going through this that they're trying to get inflation down to 2%, here's where it goes back to. So look at 2019 and you got to think like what was spending like going on in 2019? What was the real estate world doing in 2019? This is the chart on inflation. So this starts in January of 2019, shows you the inflation rate. It was pretty steady, dips down March of 2020, and then it starts rising around February of 2021 and then really starts rising, right? Keep in mind, like all the stuff that's happening. Home sales are just going crazy, right? Here it is continuing to rise, inflation, all the way to May of 2022. So that was a pretty steady incline from February 2021 to May of 2022. Now it's been steadily declining, which they want. So they say when it gets to 2%, or when the goal is to get to 2%, then we can start seeing a relief in rates, right? Interest rates. Interesting. Okay. So we're still there. I mean, we're almost there. Look at this though. It shows you that COVID inflation was the highest it had been in 40 years. Look at what inflation was like in 1970. January 1970 went down. So it was like a little over about 6%, went up, shot up in 1970, looks like 3, and then came back down, shot back up again in 1980. And you always hear from people like they had these crazy high interest rates in 1980. That probably was due to inflation. I don't know. I wasn't like in the housing game then. But then you look at steady inflation since then. Been going along, 5%, dips down, dips down, dips down. And then here it goes back up in 2021. So check that out. I find all this stuff very fascinating. You probably find it boring. But look, here's rents. Rents have continued to increase. Check this out. Here's January 2019, steady, 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 steady. Little bit of a dip in 2020. Then they start steadily going up, and they've been steadily going up since July of 2021. Now, rents have kind of leveled off a little bit right now, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at the apartment communities, they're being built like everywhere. Here in Houston, in the suburbs, they're everywhere now. Why is that happening? Well, let me tell you something. When housing prices escalated like they did, interest rates escalated like they did, there's a lot of people living on fixed income. Who's living on fixed income? People that are at a job where there's not a lot of growth for them. There's not a lot of advancement for them. There's not a lot of opportunity for them to make more money. The elderly who are living on Social Security or pension funds or whatever, these are people living on fixed income. How do they get more money? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in that situation, but I don't think they can. So if they're somewhere where they can no longer live, say they sold their house to get out of a debt situation, pay off credit card debt or something, can they afford to buy another house? Maybe, maybe not. And so when you look at people that are really understanding multifamily and why are they building so many multifamilies? Because these people are being forced out of home ownership because they can no longer afford to live in homes. Well, a lot of the times they can't afford to live in apartments either because the rents are sky high in apartments. Those people that are in fixed income, a lot of them are being forced to live in RV parks and trailer parks because it's much more affordable. They can buy an RV and make a monthly payment of, 400, maybe $800 a month, depending on the size of the RV that they buy or camper. They can go into an RV park on a permanent basis or into a trailer park and just pay a monthly pad site of maybe $400 or $700, depending on your area. So add that up and it's a fixed expense. So what you are seeing here where rents are leveling off, it's because they're building them like crazy. Are they overbuilding? I don't know. I know that there's over 90,000 units slated to be built still here in the Houston area just in the next 12 months. So that's a lot. But they're doing that because clearly they think that they'll be filling those up. And clearly they are filling those up. So you got to wonder why. Look at the next slide. Apartment construction is on a 40-year high. Look, when you look at the year 2000, look at the graphs. Then in 2009, There's like a really low turnout of apartment construction. Of course, that was when the mortgage industry crashed. So you have 9, 10, and 11. Then it started increasing again. Another little dip there where we had that little bit of a dip in our economy in 2015, 16. Things kind of were just steady, but then they've been steadily increasing since 2020, right? Check this stuff out. Isn't this fascinating? I want to show you a couple more slides. We don't need to talk about banks and why they crashed, and we don't need to talk about the debt because that's really a scary thing. But here are home sales, and this is really what I want you guys to understand in the real estate world. So this number on the left-hand side are home sales, and this is existing home sales. So this is January of 2017. You're going to see roughly between 5.5 million to 6 million home sales per year. And then you can look at this number, follow this number steadily. Pretty steady numbers there. A little bit of a dip in 2018. They started coming down. We did have a lot flatter times there in 2018. 2019, they picked back up a little bit, but pretty much they just kind of remained constant. There's like ups and downs, a little bit of ups and downs. But then you look at 2020. What was this in March of 2020? COVID, right? So home sales plummeted because remember, we had a lot of the world that was completely shut down. Here in Texas, we had essentials, and we were deemed essentials, so we were able to pick back up after like a 6-week period. So home sales skyrocketed. So once we kicked back in and were able to function again, look, it was like a straight down drop, and then boom, their home sales go. So they went up to 6 million. 6.5 million. Look at that. That's like an all-time high. That's when people were living high on the hog. So this is October 2020 to like January 2021, right? And then we had a little bit of a dip, and then we go along steady for a little bit. That dip went down to 6 million. So if you think from, say, July of 2020 all the way to January of 2022, look at that graph. You're looking at home sales averaging between 6 million and 6.5 million per year, right? And then look at what's happened since. They've just gone down, 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 down. And now here we are, January 2023 at 4 million. There was a little bit of a spike, not much. It went up to 4.5 million, but look, it's coming back down because we're back at a freeze. We're at a gridlock, like I said at the beginning of this video. What does that mean if you're in the real estate world? There's 1.6 million real estate agents in the world right now. Back in 2017, when there were only about 5.7 homes being sold, and it averaged between like 5.5 to 6 million homes being sold, there were only 1 million real estate agents licensed. So add that up in a number of transactions per agent. That's a doable number. When you're here, when our home sales, now that we thought was the norm, like 6 million sales per year, which isn't the norm, but that's the number we're basing everything on. Now we're down to home sales are at 4 million to 4.5 million. That's a huge decline in transaction count, right? And even if you go back to what the norm was for several years prior to COVID, the average was between 5 and 5.5 million. So can you see the problem there? We're at least 1 million homes less, 1 million homes sold, or 1 million less homes sold per year right now than we had been. And we've got more licensed real estate agents. So that is a problem. And when you look at the economy, like why are we suffering? When, like I said, when home sales are fueling 26 other industries, and you see now that we're 2 million home sales short of where we were during COVID times, that can explain to you why spending is down, why people are suffering in the real estate world, and yes, transaction count is down. So I hope this helped you understand a little bit more of why we can expect the things that are going on right now. What do we need to turn this around? We need homes to get on the market. We need the interest rate to come back down where more people can buy. And I believe that they will. I believe there's light at the end of this tunnel. I believe that we're going to have a great rest of this year. And I know here in our company, we are doing great things. We're not worried. We have multiple streams of income for our agents. And that's what you have to do to get through harder times. So for you guys out there in the real estate world, if you're looking like, how can you get transactions? How do you get sales? Let me tell you how. If I just told you that 85% of transactions come from a life change, whether it be death, divorce, babies, job transfers, then what should you be focusing on? Well, you should be focusing on talking to people. Look at your demographics. Look for people, the older people who are selling. People maybe 80 years or older who maybe don't want to live in that 4,000 square foot home by themselves anymore because their spouse has passed away, or maybe they're no longer able to live by themselves. Maybe they're thinking about selling right now. Maybe their home is paid off. Do you know that the assisted livings, homes and communities, they're booming right now. They are building them like crazy and all on a national level, not just in Texas and not just in Houston, but on a national level. So why are they doing that? They're doing that obviously because they're filling them. Well, who are they filling them with? Well, elderly people, right? So a lot of these elderly people live in homes that are paid off or they have a crap ton of equity in them. They're selling their homes because they no longer can live by themselves and they're going into these assisted living facilities, and that's how they pay for them, by the sale of their home. So if you know that, then maybe you should be looking for people in their 80s or 75 plus that are thinking about selling. Maybe you need to look at your demographics. Maybe when you're looking for leads or something in that manner, you should be filtering things by demographics instead of geographics. And so look for, get involved with like divorce lawyers. Talk to them. Like, how can you get into business with them? How can you help them? Most divorces, when a divorce comes around, not only do they usually have to sell the home that they live in, but a lot of times that husband and wife, when the divorce is final, will go buy a home, each of them. So now you're talking about 3 transactions instead of 1. And if you do a good job, then you're talking about referrals from both sides. So there are ways to get business. There are always ways to get business. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Don't think that this is grim. This is just reality. And I think the more you, the consumer, and the real estate agent can be educated, the better off you are to make decisions, the better off you are to take care of your family. If you are in real estate and you're struggling and you're not with somebody that's helping you, definitely reach out to us because that's what we're all about. We believe we're better together and we believe in abundance and we believe that the real estate market has ups and downs, but we're always looking at the glass being half full. I'm Tricia Turner. If you guys want more info about real estate tips and what I think about your market or your home or anything like that, you can always schedule a call at triciaturner.work. And if you want to be a guest on the show, I'm always looking for people that want to talk about the real estate market, want to talk about their business and share their story. I believe everybody has a story to tell, and I believe everybody has a success story. Peace out. Have an awesome day. Bye, y'all.